Okay, so today I was actually having a conversation with a friend of mine, and for some reason it came up that I actually got a job interview at Forever 21, and she was very interested in how the interview went and what do they ask and how do they this. So I told her the whole story, and I guess the story was actually pretty interesting because I am terrible at telling stories, no matter what. So I was like, maybe I should do a commentary on this. So here goes my experience, my interview experience at Forever 21. Excuse me. Uh, well, after that whole little story incident thing, I just went home, Googled like if anybody's ever done my interview experience at Forever 21, and I found out that I was typing it into Google, it was like the fourth result, third or fourth result, like Forever 21 interview questions. And well, I was just like, whoa, people actually do have an interest in this. So I decided to do my entire experience. So as we begin, it was about a year ago. I was 16 years old. I applied for Forever 21, as my friend told me that. They were accepting applications, this and that. And the funny thing is, I actually left school early so I could get ready for my interview, pick out what I'm gonna wear, and that's the first mistake I made. I dressed a little too formal. What I actually wore was let me remember. So, Van Heusen slim fit um, gray polo shirt with like a crisp collar, which was one of the original polos. And it was 5 button, slim. Of course, I had an undershirt on, some gray Banana Republic jeans, and some Coach shoes. And the Coach shoes is what really got me my foot through the door and actually probably kept the interview going. So when I get there, they're doing group interviews, and they're doing them group at a time. So let's say these people got here. It's like we'll interview you guys after we're done with these people. So when we got there, they were interviewing like about 7 people. Like 6 of them were girls, 2 of them were guys. That's not the right math, but that's the ratio to every group. But since I was part of the last group, this like 2 or 3 girls just showed up as well. Yeah, I think it was 2 girls showed up as well. One was like about 21, I think, and the other one was about, I don't know, 19. I was 16 at the time, so I was just like the only guy that wasn't really dressed up. Had emo hair. My face was showing. I had a buzz cut. Well, not exactly a buzz cut. I had a low fade. You guys know what that is? Military cut hairstyle, but I had it a few weeks ago, so my hair was growing out, so I just combed it to the side. And they began with the interview question as the actual regional manager came out the back door. We were taking the interview outside. Came out through like the giant glass doors out to us to supervise the interviews, and they get these special HR guys that are like freaking military trained. I'm just kidding. No, but they get these special HR guys that are like majoring like psychology or some shit like that because they know how to provoke you, they know how to piss you off, and they know how to read your body language and determine if you're the right candidate for the job. But I'm gonna get into that later. So she comes out, and as the guy we were making conversation, pre-interview conversation or whatever. It's like, oh, I like your shoes, coach shoes. Yeah, the thing is, I got my coach shoes at oh, I got my coach shoes, but I got them the wrong size, so it really sucked whenever I wore them. That's what he was telling me, so I was just like, oh, well, I got the regular size, and then some girl just jumps in, interrupts me, and she's like, oh, it tries to dominate the conversation with fashion and shit, and I'm just like, oh, bitch. But anyways, so as the interview comes on, the lady approaches and he's like, all right, well, we'll begin the interview process right now. So they sat us at a bench, and there was 2 girls. One was sitting to my left, and the other one was sitting to my right. So yeah, they began asking us questions, like they began asking the girls questions and just general questions, and we all took turns to answer the questions. And one of the questions I really do remember at the beginning of the interview was how well you would handle an employee or something like that, or all right, past experience working in retail or something like that, and why you want to work at Forever 21. Well, some girls gave them like, oh my god, I like this place for fashion, this and that, and blah blah blah, and I'm just like, shut up, my turn. And then when it came to my turn, I'm like, well, Forever 21 is the only clothing store that I could get clothes that actually fit me, that are comfortable, good to go, solid rock, and fashionable. And I just gave them that straight, solid answer, and I was just like, oh, all right, it's rock and roll. And the other girls were like, I like the accessories, this and that. Well, of course, Forever 21 has more accessories than what it is for guys. So, as the interview continues on, and she's like, oh, well, somehow I dominate the conversation of the interview, and I told them like, oh, my first job that I got, which was at a computer store, but the first job I got was like right then and there. They told me to go to work and to see how I worked, and I worked there for like a full day to see if I worked well. And she's like, the regional manager interrupted, and she's like, oh, you know how to do that, this and that, and regional manager. I don't think it's a regional manager. It's a district manager. Anyway, she managed like 6 Forever 21s in the area, so I guess it's regional. Anyways, the regional manager was just like, "Oh, really? Let's go to the floor right now, this and that." And I'm like, "All right, let's rock and roll. Let's do this." So that I go with the regional manager right behind the regional manager. I'm not gonna disclose her ethnicity, but something I hate. And if you've been watching the channel lately, you could tell what ethnicity I hate. Yeah. Okay. So, she goes and we were talking this and that, and she's like, all right, just interact and see how you well with the other people. And the girls just go behind us, and they were just struggling with their bags and their purses and shit. And I'm just like, all right, whatever. Yeah, let's do this. And so then I kind of hang out at one side of the store where all the denim jeans and jackets are, and then I was just like, all right, well, I'm not having any luck here because I suck at denim shit that are girls. So then I move over to accessories, see if I have a little bit more, more, taste in that. See if I have better luck in that. And then it turns out I did it. Asian girls would just be fucking mean to me. So I was just like, fuck this. I'm going to the guys section. So I just went to the guys section. That's where I was most fluent and actually helped a guy pick out a shirt. And yeah. And somehow I moved from one side of the store to the other side of the store in the course of like 15 minutes until I actually greeted somebody. And when I greeted somebody, that's when she pulled me out and took me to a back room and sat me down. And then she's like, oh yeah, this and that, you did well, you're doing great, high five, this and that, just keep it up. But we're gonna wait for our HR interviewer to come in a little bit later. And some girl actually did make the cut, I suppose, because the other girl that was sitting to my right at the beginning of the interview outside at a bench came in after that with the HR guy, and the other girl was gone. Like, she was just like, they got rid of her, like, Soviet concentration camp, they mysteriously disappeared. Whatever. But I guess she didn't make the cut to continue the interview. So the HR guy starts asking us questions, but he starts asking me and grilling me questions, and he's just like, okay, so compromise with the customer. If you ever see an unhappy customer, this and that, blah blah blah, what do you do? And well, you tell them like, customer's always right. There's always an area of compromise, and anybody you would tell. But then the little bit more complicated questions come along, and he starts asking me like, oh, do your friends ask you what's in? Like, what was in last season for summer? And I was just like, what was in for season for girls last spring? And I was just like, shit. Well, I just told them what was in for guys because I recently read a Yahoo article. It's like, for fall it will be stripes for guys. And I'm like, well, for guys I noticed that there's a lot of stripes. He's like, oh well, you're kind of wrong, because, well, he didn't say you're kind of wrong, but it's like, oh well, it's layers for girls, this and that. Like, they didn't give shit much about guys, which that's the only thing I know. And it's like, oh well, layers for girls. So yeah, this and that. So and this and that, and then they asked me the same. Next question was so what would you add to my outfit that I'm wearing right now? I was wearing a cardigan earlier today, and I took it off because it was kind of hot. So that's the part that got me the most. It took me a good 30 seconds to answer. I was like, oh shit, that would have been perfect. And relatively, he was wearing the same thing I was wearing, which was kind of important to like what happens next. So I was like, oh shit. And then I was like, well, some sunglasses, mirrored sunglasses, aviators, kind of like mine right here. So I just show my sunglasses, or a watch maybe. Yeah. And he's like, oh, okay, like, we kind of need, I don't think this is going very well. I think we kind of need somebody that has a little bit more taste and style. I mean, look what you're wearing. It's not really, not really, look at me. It's not really in style. But then that's when I thought in my head, I was just like, well, it's an interview, so you have to be formal, and I'm dressing pretty fashionable in a formal sense, so I know what to do. He's like, "Oh, well, at least you're wearing coach shoes, and I know you have a little bit of a taste." And I'm just like, "Well, if a guy's gonna freaking, if these people are gonna insult me like that, I'm not even gonna say anything." And he's like, "Oh, you have pretty much of a taste, this and that." And like the questions were mostly directed to me and the answers, and they kind of just ignore the girl to my right, where she was like around 21, had a kid. She told us her life story after the interview, but after he was asking my questions, and then I was just like, shit, you know. But yeah, those are the interview questions they ask you, like what in style, what girls like, what guys like. They give shit less about guys, but what girls like, what body types they wear, how much do they accessorize during winter, spring, summer, this and that. You have to know your fashion. You have to know it well. It seems like you have like you're supposed to have like a fashion designer associate's degree and fucking some shit like that, but at least you have to know fashion very, very well. Which, mm, I only know guys' fashion, in other words. But after that, I actually kind of kept up with some of the latest trends. I haven't really gotten the fall preview because I usually get the fall preview at the in Palm Desert, just at some desert in California. But last summer was bright colors, and I don't see. You have to pay attention if you're gonna apply there and you get an interview. You have to pay attention to what girls wear out there. So at the moment, at that time, layers was in the year before. Now I don't know what's up yet. It's still a little hot in my area, but it was bright colors during summer and spring. I didn't really give a shit about spring. But you have to pay attention to what's out there, what girls want and what girls need, fashion-wise, and other girls want and other girls need. And if you're watching this, if you're a girl, and these HR guys are like trained psych- psychological, observers or whatever. They try to provoke you and push you to the very limit to where you're right about to punch somebody and see how well you can handle that. Because I mean, girls are girls, and they'll get sassy and they'll get bitchy and they'll get mean, and it's kind of like a training method that they try to do if you naturally have it or not. So you have to, watch your body language, like completely be relaxed constantly, and just don't make any sudden changes in your body language. Like when he told me like, oh, we need somebody with a little bit more style, this and that. I don't want to say clench my fist, but my body language changed, and I was just like, I'm ready to fucking sock this guy. But then I was just like, okay, let's just relax. The interview went well to begin with, but the HR guy is the guy that fucked shit up. And that's what kind of got me thinking, because I was actually applying for a job again today at Sears. Well, not at Sears, but I went to Sears and saw a giant hiring poster, and yeah, later I learned from that experience that corporate America is kind of evil, and you have to pay attention to your body language, and it will not kill you to practice. For the love of God, practice with a friend or something. And yeah, that's my interview experience at Forever 21. It wasn't that hard. There was a lot of people that were, applying, and I was thinking of applying again, but I don't want to see the same guy again. Oh, and what he was wearing to insult me that I have terrible taste, he was wearing the same thing, but he was just wearing a black shirt and combat boots, and a scarf, and I'm just like, well, you're not much for looks yourself, my friend. But I just didn't want to tell him that. It's nah. Keep your cool, but to a certain extent. Well, yeah, and that was my interview experience at Forever 21. Um, I assure you I'm not gay. I like the clothes there. I got this sick ass Space Invaders shirt I usually get. People usually compliment me on that, alongside with my top hat smiley face shirt. I think that one's on sale at the moment. I think they don't even have that one anymore. I'm pretty sure my Space Invaders one is like on sale as well. I also have a Dr. Y shirt, which a little comic strip from the 60s. Pretty awesome. Broke the ice, took that one not very far, but that's a whole nother story. I don't even remember that story. I have a terrible short-term memory, but I'll explain that in another commentary. All right. Thank you, and yeah, I did well in this game, and I'll continue on. We'll continue this in another time. Puppies, out. Good night, everybody.